What if one of America's most exciting places to work wasn't a technology company, or a hospital, or even a university? What if it was a museum? Today, we're taking you behind the scenes of America's Smithsonian, where more than 6,700 people wake up each morning with one remarkable mission: to increase and diffuse knowledge. Stay with us. I think you're about to discover an America you've never seen.
Welcome to the Not Old Better Show, Smithsonian Associates interview series on radio and podcast. The show covering all things health, wellness, culture, and more. The show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Thank you. And what if I told you that one of the most exciting places to build a career isn't a technology company, not a hospital, or even a university? What if it was a museum? Now, stay with me for a moment, because today's conversation may change the way you think about museums forever. Most of us picture galleries, famous artifacts, or perhaps a favorite exhibit we visited with our children or grandchildren. But behind every exhibit is an extraordinary community of people: scientists studying our changing planet, engineers designing new spaces, educators inspiring lifelong learners, conservators preserving priceless treasures, veterinarians caring for endangered species, security professionals, communications experts, digital innovators, gardeners, architects, researchers, and storytellers. Thousands of people working together with one shared purpose: increasing and sharing knowledge for the benefit of all. As America marks its 250th anniversary, the Smithsonian is inviting us to think not only about where we've been, but where we're going. At a time when artificial intelligence is reshaping the workforce, institutions like the Smithsonian remind us that curiosity, creativity, sound judgment, public trust, and the desire to serve remain deeply human qualities. So today, we're going behind the scenes with Fredie Adelman of Smithsonian Associates. Fredie has been a guest previously. She's an audience favorite. She just has so much to offer. We will explore with Fredie why museums are far more than places that preserve history. They're places where discovery happens, where innovation begins, where communities gather, where difficult conversations are welcome, and where people from every imaginable profession come together to work for the common good. Whether you're beginning your career, considering a second act, encouraging a grandchild to follow their curiosity, or simply wondering what America's museums really do every day, I think you'll find this conversation both surprising and inspiring. Please join me in welcoming back to the Not Old Better Show, Smithsonian Associates interview series, Fredie Adelman. Fredie Adelman, always good to talk to you. Happy summer. Welcome back to our program.
Thank you very much, Paul. It is a joy to be with you and share whatever I can about how much the Smithsonian means to all of us across the world.
Well, we'll talk today about that. I saw a great article about 6,700 of you actually
Right.
working behind the scenes, doing so much. And I have to tell you right out of the gate, in preparing for our conversation today, it really changed the way I thought about museums. I'll kind of start there. I think, like so many in our audience, I love visiting Smithsonian. But after talking to you, after kind of doing a little prep, I realized I really was appreciating kind of what was being there on display, not really giving a bunch of thought to what's really kind of happening behind the scenes. And I wonder if you'll maybe start there with us and just give us a sense, describe today's museum to somebody who hasn't really looked behind the scenes, because I think it's a very vivid picture and one that I know is going to mean a lot to our audience to kind of get that perspective.
Thank you for asking that. That's a really terrific question. And I spend a lot of time thinking about it. I come out of the world of education, and I want people to really think of museums as these wonderful places that are a microcosm of the world in terms of career opportunities. Because there are so many ways that people work behind the scenes in museums, large and small, right? The objects are not getting there by themselves.
Right. Right.
And every word that is written, every object that is placed, every security measure that is in place, every light, every decision, there are many more people behind those than anybody would imagine. We have researchers and scientists, and I'm happy to go on, but it
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
the 6,700 is staff. There's another 4,000 and something of volunteers. So we really are this major workforce of people who bring the Smithsonian to life, and that is true in every museum all across all around the world, really.
The other thing I learned from you, which I always learn so much from you as an educator yourself, I really gained so much understanding. And I know the audience is going to benefit from this too. And that is this idea that Smithsonian really isn't just Washington, D.C. It's festivals, it's, educational programs, it's the researchers out there, it's in communities, across America. How does a national network like that really drive Smithsonian's mission so that, communities can really feel connected to the Smithsonian, regardless of where the Smithsonian is kind of landing its four walls, its physical plan, maybe.
So our physical space in Washington, D.C. reaches out literally across the globe. A couple of weeks ago, I was in contact with a curator, and she was on her way to Kenya with a small team to carry out her research at a research station that has been in operation for decades. She is the sort of the most recent of the scholars who've been to that particular research area. So we go out across the world, across the nation. We have observatory for so that's archaeology. We have astrophysical observatories in Cambridge. We work with Harvard. We have one in Arizona. We have another one in Hawaii that have been chronicling the universe through these massive telescopes. So we go out into the world, we do the research, we share it. We share it with the scientific community, with the scholarly community. We debate, we ask each other questions. Some of it comes back to the Smithsonian, and then some of it goes to museums around the nation. We have a network of some 200 affiliated museums. We have special relationship with those places. We also do traveling exhibitions. That's where I got my start here at the Smithsonian. And in both of those cases, it's not so much the Smithsonian pushing things out as it is saying, "Are you interested in this, and how does this relate to your community? Tell your own community story in relation to what we know in the Smithsonian." So it's this constant dialogue that we engage in with our colleagues pretty much everywhere.
Tell us a little bit about the festivals because
That's what
as again, as I yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. One that is squarely in the purview of the Smithsonian, but yet some communities may not even be aware that a festival related to Smithsonian is going on there.
So the festival culture, the idea of bringing people together for a brief amount of time to really focus in on particular aspects of culture, whether they are music or dance or visual arts, is such an exciting time for people because it says, put your world aside and come here and share with one another. So for many, many years, nearly 50, I think, almost 60, the Smithsonian has hosted a Folklife Festival on the National Mall. And this year we decided to really celebrate the 250th anniversary of signing the Declaration of Independence by going out across the nation to festivals of all sizes, all scopes, all kinds of emphases and focus. So I highly recommend that our listeners go to Smithsonian websites and look, just like Smithsonian Festival near me. And I can tell you that these are opportunities of, um, again, shared information. Sometimes the people at the local festival have come to the Smithsonian. Sometimes the people from the Smithsonian festivals gone to those locations. And sometimes it's somebody who says, there's this really great thing happening in my community. We want you to be part of it. So they're just terrific. And of course, summer is festival season and it's state fairs. So we have an exhibition about state fairs and we go to state fairs because it's an opportunity for people to put aside their everyday life or shine a light on their everyday life and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and pass it along. It's a sharing of traditions. It's super, super exciting.
It
Smallest of the
really is.
largest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful thing, and so we'll have notes
Mhm.
today from our conversation. We'll
Yes,
put links so that our
please.
audience can find out more about folk life and all of the various festivals, but I think those are great examples. I think museums often, in many of our minds, are wonderful, places to help us understand the past, but I think they're also inspiration to look uh, you know, about what's coming next. Maybe tell us a little bit about why and how museums are just uniquely positioned to give an inspiration to visitors.
The word inspiration, I think, is a really important one because I think what I like to think of in museums is we hold memories, right? We care for objects. So the very word curator means care for. So we care for objects, but objects are symbolic of a memory. And they may be a collective memory, it may be an individual memory, but there's always a story behind it. And if you know what the memory is, you can say, well, how is that going to help inform me going forward? And one of my favorite examples of this has to do with a very, very small object. It was a Lincoln watch, belonged to President Lincoln. And we held it in our collection. It was an object of presidential significance, of personal significance. It talks about time, and it's, just the idea of a pocket watch for somebody who today relies on their phone. I mean, it just brings up, it's so evocative. And we had it for years. We're quite old, the Smithsonian. I'm not sure everybody knows, but we're almost 180 years old, but that's a different story. It's amazing. But a few years ago, as the as our research equipment became finer and finer, and we could examine objects with more care and more detail, we could take them apart and we could look at them in ways that we hadn't been able to before. And lo and behold, we found that there was a very personal inscription inside this watch that hadn't been seen for 100 years. So it's that kind of, we hold things in trust for particularly for the American people, but we hold things in trust and then we continue to learn about them because the instruments are that much more they're that much more refined, right? We another example is in an exhibition we just opened called American Aspirations, and it contains the gold nugget that was located at Sutter's Mill in California that launched the gold rush, right? So when you hear gold nugget, you think lump of gold. Well, this thing is smaller than my pinky fingernail. Pinky fingernail, it's really tiny. But because we now have microscopes and macroscopes, we can enlarge this tiny flake of a gold nugget and look at it, and lo and behold, we have learned that it was hammered flat before it came to be trusted to the Smithsonian. So we have this tiny, it looks like a flake of gold, right? It's tiny. We now can look at it enlarged, and we can learn so much just from feeling what that must have felt like to see this little bit of shiny material that was legendary, right? Gold was came from legend. And then you start to understand how this movement happened and how the nation enlarged from something that we didn't know about to something that just blossomed. So it's those kinds of things. We didn't have the ability to enlarge this until just very recently. So it's as instruments change, we learn more and more and more. It's super exciting.
It is. It's super interesting. And the innovation is amazing. But, Freddie, I want to go back to a planning conversation that you and I had about this interview.
Mm.
You said something really beautiful. It was memorable. And I wrote it down at the time. You said these collections, referring to the work at the Smithsonian, they don't simply belong to one museum. They're held in trust for the American people and in many cases for the world. What does that responsibility mean? Because that's enormous, really. And how does that idea, holding these collections in trust, how does that idea shape the work that you and your colleagues do every day?
Um, we take it we take it very seriously, and we collect everything with discernment. So when we collect something, when we bring something into the collection, we ask ourselves, why? What's the story that it will tell? Who is it going to benefit? Who is it going to ask who are going to ask questions? The details, obviously, where was it found and what do we know about it? But we believe that because we have the capacity to protect the objects, right? We have climate control within the museums, right? We monitor humidity and air temperature. We have specialists in just, heating and cooling beyond what we do in our homes. So we can protect the objects. We can care for them if they have, if they're fragile in any way. We have conservators, chemists who can look at the material and make sure that if something has been damaged, that we can treat that, but we can also go back and understand where the damage came from. So we hold things in ways that are difficult for somebody keeping something treasured in their home, for example. So if it is an object that you treasure, and I know everybody has treasured objects, but over time, things can happen to it. There's humidity changes, there are temperature changes, there are things we cannot control. And if we want to preserve the essence of the object and the story, museums are really well positioned to do that. And it doesn't have to be just the Smithsonian. It can be the affiliate museums, it can be your local museum, right? A local museum holds treasures and can hold treasures that benefit the entire community because they tell the communal story. So I think the trust that these are items that shouldn't be forgotten and can tell more stories is super important.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that.
Mm.
One of the other things that is so obvious here, you and I are talking kind of mid July. We're marking America's 250th anniversary, and many of the conversations are focused on the past. Yet Smithsonian has this really amazing program going on right now, Our Shared Future, and that initiative really invites us all to kind of look ahead. What are you hoping that Americans begin thinking as we enter our nation's kind of next chapter?
That is a big question, and I think where museums can be is they can say, "Let's look at what we've learned, and how can we take those lessons and move ourselves forward? Is there something that we know about today that we didn't know about 50, 100, 200 years ago, 250 years ago that will make us stronger, smarter, more capable in a future situation?" So we're always looking. One of the benefits of museums, for instance, we talk a lot, and you and I've talked about the loneliness epidemic, right? Where people are isolated and feel lonely. Well, museums are amazing social benefactors, right? Most people who visit museums visit with somebody else. And so there's a moment for healing and building community and social awareness from the very littlest. We do story time for infants and caregivers. And that's an opportunity for someone who may be stressed out with a small one at home, or someone who comes to the museum at a quiet time. We do another thing called Mornings at the Museums for people who have learning disabilities or just feel uncomfortable in a big, loud crowd. And these are times when you can bring together people who are in need and their caregivers and give them something beautiful to look at or something strange to look at or just something to talk about together. So I think museums have a huge opportunity in terms of community wellness, and that's something that we haven't looked at in the past, but certainly look towards in the future as people are more isolated. It's harder to come together, and we're more used to being online or being far apart. Museums are gathering places. They're the sort of a fourth place to go.
It's so nice. And I think that that is just so important for all of us. And we talked a little bit about researchers. I did not know that caregivers were a focus. And of course, I know about the night at the museum and the museum sleepovers and all of those great kind of things. There are lots of career paths that people might never really associate with the museum, especially along some of these lines. But I think if someone said to you, I love meaningful work, but I'm not a historian. What would you tell
That's
them?
fine. I'm not a historian either. You know, we if museums are special because they are incubators for opportunity. So no matter what your interest is and what your skill sets are, there are opportunities in museums to grow those skill sets and take advantage of a space that is experimental, that is cultivating curiosity, right? You have to have a certain level of flexibility and interest, and you want to be in invited into a place that says, "Let's try something new. Let's look at this in a different way." The historian will look at something from a historical perspective. The scientist may look at that same object and say, "Well, what is it made of? And what is that going to tell me about material culture?" The artist may look at something and say, "Let me see if I can create something bigger and better and different, and it inspires me." So you can really take what you're experiencing in a museum and personalize it, but also have that social experience within it. I always tell people, if you're interested in museums, find the one that's closest to you and go there and offer your services. Offer your do you have a legal background? I know the museum needs legal assistance. If they don't need it today, they'll need it tomorrow, and they would love to know that you're available to them. Are Do you have degrees, or are you a licensed plumber or electrician? We need electrical engineers and plumbers because we're caring for these collections. Are you a builder? We need builders. Smithsonian has an indoor beekeeper. We care about bees, we talk about pollinators, we have a beehive, and we need somebody to care for it. And that came about because somebody said, I've noticed these bees flying in and out of the Natural History Museum. Can I help?" So offer up your skills locally, and museums will be very, very grateful.
Our guest, of course, is Smithsonian Associate Fredie Adelman, who's been with us previously. Freddie's talked about a lot of great programs. We will have links and notes today so that our audience can find out more information about all these great things that Smithsonian is doing. And I want to ask you a kind of a general question about this idea of curation, because I think it is important for people to understand that these museums are really multidisciplinary. They're workplaces that are broad and deep, not just for
Mhm.
curators. Why is that an important point to make? Let's get back to that question about career
Career path.
paths.
I think it's an
Yeah.
important point to make because sometimes museums can seem imposing, and they're not. And I don't think that there's enough of an understanding that museums, and we talked about 6,700 people. The majority of those people are not curators or historians. They're the people who really keep the place running. And that's what we need. We need people who understand how a building operates. We need people uh, who love to be like sign painters, right? Designers, architects. Um, I was looking after our conversation, I sort of set myself a little task, and could I come up with an alphabet of jobs? And I went to the Smithsonian vacancies, and sure enough, there is an absolute plethora of different paths you can take. We need people to greet visitors in the museum shop and help them figure out what would be the best gift to give to somebody. We are always looking for people for advice, right? I talked about legal, but accounting. How can we improve our systems so that we can be there for visitors and make our places even brighter and safer and more fun and more engaging, because these are places there are no exams. I don't we didn't talk about this, but there are no exams when you come to a museum, right? You bring what you know, you learn a little bit more, and you bring somebody along with you. I mean, there are wonderful, wonderful opportunities, and not everybody needs to have, advanced degrees in order to work at museums. It's a willingness to do this kind of work.
Would it be fair to say that curiosity is just as valuable as technical expertise?
100%.
Yeah.
Curiosity and a willingness to say yes,
Yeah, right. Always,
right?
always.
When you always, you say, "Can you do this?" The answer is, "Yes, because 'cause I'm smart and I can figure it out."
Yeah.
Uh, so if I or I'll go find somebody who can help me do it. That's what I say. I spend a lot of time, working with and talking with our interns. Smithsonian has a very, very active, internship program, and anytime I talk to an intern, I say, "Just say yes." You want to be in a museum. There's something about the atmosphere in a museum that has sparked something in you. People talk about, I went to a museum and I saw, put the name of your collection there, and it made me wanna learn more, go more. Just I've never spoken to somebody who said, um, that they've been in a museum and it hasn't sparked some kind of thinking in them. That has yet to happen to me. I'm waiting. So bring it on. But everybody has a museum experience that they wanna share.
Mm,
So
mhm. You know, Freddie, listening to you today, I am struck. I just have been thinking about something that we don't hear enough. Museums aren't simply places where we remember.
mm,
They're places where we discover. It's this idea of the research that you talked about. They're also places where questions can become research and where ideas can become innovation, just as you talked about a few minutes ago.
mm.
And it's where history informs the future. That struck me all along. And where thousands of people, these 6,700 people in that wonderful photo, where thousands of people dedicate their talents to serving something larger than themselves. The work that you do, the work that Lauren Lyons does, it's that work. That may be Smithsonian's greatest collection of all. It's people.
Thank you. Thank you. People who work in museums tend to have broad interests, tend to really value their colleagues, and want to be involved in telling stories about the things that we're caring for, but also in uh, connecting with people at other levels in other disciplines. So, with historians, with national teachers associations, with the scientific community. There are groups of scholars and researchers and practitioners for every profession. Again, lawyers. I happen to have a real affinity for the legal work that we do here at the Smithsonian. And there's a whole group of people who do nothing but look at issues in legal issues in museums, because museums are legal entities, and that's a passion that once you're in it, again, all the attorneys I've ever spoke to, all the counsel who provide that kind of assistance and support for museums, they're doing it because they see that museums really could benefit the community by having these legal, issues resolved or in place or even addressed.
Well, Freddie Adelman, so generous of you to spend some time with us. Before I let you go, I have what I call you know me well enough to know it's kind of my lightning round
Uh-oh.
questions, and I'd love to ask them. They're quick. We'll get you out of here very very quickly, and you just answer whatever comes to mind first with regard to these. So, you ready to? Yep, ready to go. Okay. What
New
what is
York.
one Smithsonian job that people might not believe actually exists?
Um, Tiger nutritionist.
Okay, I did not that's a good one. That is a good one. We'll have a link to that job applica Yep, definitely, we'll find out more. Okay, give us an example of just some laud some of these wonderful people. What's an example of some remarkable work by Smithsonian Associates that most visitors would probably be surprised to learn about?
That's hard because there's so many different things that we do. Smithsonian Associates is online, we're in person, we do programs for the smallest, youngest, and for our, esteemed elders. We have an art collectors program. I don't know that we've ever talked about that, but for somebody who wants to learn more about collecting art, we offer opportunities for that. We offer a certificate in world art history for someone who feels like they've never had an opportunity to really study art history, and we do it in the gentlest way possible. So those things might come as a surprise from the associate's perspective. From the Smithsonian overall, I think I mentioned, we operate observatories all around all around the world. I mean, that's when I found that out, I thought that was cool. We have a research station on the Chesapeake Bay that we look at, and as the bay changes and we try to understand water and the impact of water and land. It's an endless, well of excitement.
What's the biggest misconception that people have about working at the Smithsonian Associates?
Oh, that we're just all stuffy. That we're stuffy intellectuals.
Not yeah,
We are we are so not that. And I also wanna make the point that, we really do care about our people. I've been in a lot of meetings, as the summer has worn on, especially because we're welcoming many visitors from all around the nation to celebrate the 250th. And not only are we concerned with our collections and our stories and our objects, but we want to make sure that visitors are safe. And so we have a whole group of people who are greeting visitors, who are providing visitors with directions to water fountains to make sure that they're cooling off in the summer heat. We want our visitors to be comfortable and happy and healthy, so that their experience is a whole body experience. It's not just be in the museum. We want people to be welcomed here, and that I think that's something that's really important about understanding the museum.
You mentioned your work with interns, and so I have a question. If a college age person came to you, if a high school person came to you and just said, "How do I work here someday?" What would you say? What would be the first thing that you would tell them?
First thing I would tell them is start with your local museum. And then the second thing I would tell them is get to know the Smithsonian. No matter where you are in the world, the internet has an incredible opportunity to look at museums globally. You can visit all of the Smithsonian museums from the comfort of your own home. You can go to Europe, you can go to South Africa, you can go to Alaska, visit those museums in your at your own pace and your own time, and really find the things that are exciting to you. Are you interested in clocks and watches? There are clocks and watch museums around the world. So what tickles your fancy? Are you interested in comic books? Are you interested in manga? Are you interested in contemporary art or ancient? Use your browser, use your knowledge of just understanding how to go to a website and dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you'll learn about museums. I also love to recommend that people look at large museum organizations like the International Council on Museums, if you're looking globally, the American Alliance of Museums, if you're looking nationally, just to understand the breadth of opportunity that there is out there. And I that's what I tell students all the time.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Freddie Adelman, one final lightning round for you. Just finish this sentence, if you would. Museums matter because.
Museums matter because they help people feel good about where they are, where they've been, and where they're going.
Wonderful stuff. Freddie Adelman, Smithsonian Associates, returning guest, always such an audience favorite, a favorite, I think, of mine. And I just have to thank you for your generosity, for all your work. Congratulations on everything that's going on for America 250 and all the great Smithsonian Associates work. I just enjoy my work with you so much. And I just love talking to you. Again, this wonderful phrase, they're held in trust for the American people and in many cases for the world. Such great stuff, Freddie Adelman. Thank you for your time. I look forward to catching up to you again. Have a great rest of your summer.
Thank you, Paul. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. You make me think about things in many, many new different ways. So thank you.
My thanks to Fredie Adelman for joining us today and giving us a remarkable look behind the scenes at Smithsonian. I think one of the biggest takeaways from our conversation is that museums are anything but quiet places that simply preserve the past. They are living institutions where scientists make discoveries, educators inspire lifelong learning, conservators protect priceless treasures, engineers solve complex problems, and thousands of dedicated people work every day in service to something larger than themselves. The Smithsonian's mission, established nearly 180 years ago, remains as relevant today as ever to increase and diffuse knowledge. Those simple words have guided generations of researchers, educators, artists, communicators, and public servants whose work reaches far beyond Washington, D.C. Their efforts improve our understanding of the natural world, protect cultural heritage, advance scientific discovery, and make knowledge available to everyone. As America marks its 250th anniversary, the Smithsonian reminds us that our nation's story is still being written. The institution holds that story in trust, not only for the American people, but as part of our shared human history. Through research, education, conservation, and public service, it helps us understand where we've been, challenges us to think about where we're going, and invites each of us to contribute to the common good. To learn more about Fredie Adelman, Smithsonian Associates, and For the Common Good, Smithsonian Voices on Our Shared Future 250, it's a conversation series. You can visit our website at Not Old Better. We'll have links to those programs. We'll have links to upcoming Smithsonian Associate events too. And additional Smithsonian resources. All of that will be in our show notes. My thanks as always to you, our wonderful audience, for listening, for learning, and for sharing these conversations with friends and family. We encourage you to do that. I'm Paul Vogelsang. This is the Not Old Better Show Smithsonian Associates interview series. Until next time, let's continue to be curious. Keep asking questions. Be well. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Not Old Better Show, Smithsonian Associates interview series on radio and podcast.